Welcome all to the API 102 session with Postman, building workflows with APIs. Let's introduce you. Let's begin with introducing you to the organizers of this session. Meet Sourav Bera and Swastik Mishra, both Postman student leaders from Institute of Technical Education and Research, Mishra. So today we are on a mission. That is, you have been hired by a professional music blogger to create a workflow that helps you to discover new music. You'll use the Spotify Wave API in this case to let the blogger search for the songs they like and find similar music of his interest, isn't it? So for this, you need to learn a couple of things. So in this session, we'll cover up and we'll learn how to make an API request with auth. I guess you are a bit confused about the auth stuff. We'll explore it in detail. And calling a real world REST API, okay, like the Spotify Web API in this case, chaining multiple API calls to build a workflow, which is actually the definition of the workflow, calling multiple requests in a collection together in a workflow, visualizing response data. So today we'll learn how to build an automated API workflow in Postman to create a discovery app with the Spotify API. First, we'll cover over the authentication and OAuth, a bit of the theory. Then we'll talk about the building workflows themselves. And finally, we'll get to building one custom workflow. So once we're done, I will share you some couple of resources that you can also use to further your learning. At the end, we'll have the Q&A session. But just a reminder, if you have any question, feel free to put it in the chat and let's get started. So what is auth and why do APIs use it? Have you thought over it? So think of an API which does not have any authentication or maybe an auth built into it. Anyone can use it publicly and think that anyone can make it down as well by abusing it or making multiple calls or like just flooding it by making multiple calls. Anyone can bring it down. So auth is a very important part of an API. So basically, when we talk about auth, it's basically an abbreviation of two things: authentication and authorization. Authentication barely means verifying an identity of an individual. And authorization is granting the permission or the resources, outletting the resources. We'll discuss it using an example. So we'll just discuss the authentication and authorization with the help of an example of a student, okay, a real life student. When a student enters into a college, maybe like at the college gate, he or she is interrupted and verified whether he's an affiliated student of that college or not. That is the authentication, verifying one's identity that one claims. Then comes the once you have passed on the check at the gate, you have entered into the college premise. You are provided with certain resources. That is a classroom, a seat, a table and chair, and maybe some stationary resources along with an internet facility at the college, isn't it? So think of this as an authorization. What authorization barely means is that to uh, to actually allocate or maybe verify what permissions or resources he or she has an access to. This works similar in the case of an API. Now we'll discuss the types of authentications in APIs. These are basic auths, which is pretty much like you must be aware of, like using a simple HTTPS based authentication method, which consists of an username and a password credential. But do we want to share our passwords really? Isn't it a malpractice? Like if anyone can hack into the system and get our passwords and use the API to like use it for malpractices or maybe abuse the API, isn't it? So a better option for this is API key. And another the option is OAuth. We'll discuss in this session. We'll discuss API key and OAuth in detail. Whereas in case of basic auth, it is going out of fashion because it requires sharing of sensitive credentials like your password and the username, which cannot be revoked easily in case of an abuse. So, what is an API key? Isn't it an alphanumeric string? But what is it actually? An API key is a method of authorization that functions like an invitation from the API. You register an account with the API service and it gives you an API key, which is an alphanumeric string, to include it in your every request. This way, the API can keep a track of how many requests or maybe how much usage you are making. And this can be used in several ways. First, it can keep a limit upon how many API calls you can make per minute in order to avoid overflooding of the request. It can also charge, monetize, and charge money based on the usage. And also, in case of an abuse, it can also protect by revoking the invitation of the API keys. Now comes the OAuth, where the magic happens. You must have seen the screen a lot of times while you're logging into a web application, maybe websites or mobile application, isn't it? Instead of creating an account, you log into a service using an existing account, maybe a Google, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And what is what it makes possible. For example, if a service like a DoorDash needs certain details of a user, that is me, like my email address, my name, my phone number, my location data, but it can easily get it from the Google service without revealing my password. With the help of OAuth, Google will only share the data which the user has given the permission for the application to view. And these data permissions is called the scopes. Layers like OpenID can be added on to the top of OAuth, an authentication service, to the auth flow. Now let's take a real world example to understand OAuth. Understand OAuth as a wallet key. Think of a luxury car. If I own a luxury car, it has a wallet key. A wallet key is a special car key that the wallets can use to move the car for a short distance, maybe from the to and from the parking space. But imagine the key comes with a limitation that it cannot be used for far distances, or maybe you cannot expose it out of a particular radius, right? Then it works similar to the OAuth. OAuth basically restricts the user to access certain resources or maybe data of a different service that it is accessing, or limits the access to some resources they own themselves, right? It acts rather giving the master key or entire resource allocation. Now let's just get into a little bit of theory of into a history of the OAuth. OAuth. Okay, so basically OAuth has two versions, OAuth 1 and OAuth 2. Since the beginning of OAuth 1 in 2006, when Twitter was developing its OpenID system, eventually other interested parties also came into and collaborated together and released a standard version of OAuth 1, that is in 2007, and it became a popular standardized solution for the issue of sharing data without having to reveal the password. Isn't it cool? Then came the OAuth 2.0, which further simplified the developer experience by allowing the authorization to happen over HTTPS call, which is a secured platform, and instead of complicated digital signatures, it just basically used HTTPS over the complicated digital signatures. Yeah. Now comes do the OAuth dance. So what is OAuth dance? The goal of OAuth is to obtain an access token. There are several different dances that have to be performed by the OAuth to obtain the access token, and we will be just exploring these things in detail, hands-on practically on the hands-on session. So depending on the application type, here is a typical OAuth 2.0 flow for the common authorization code grant type. So this grant type requires application to make at least 3 requests in order to authorize requests. And let's say, for example, there is an address book application that needs access to a user's Google contact. Okay, so the application client requests authorization from the user response resource owner, that is the user, okay, who is the resource owner, to access a scope of their resources. For example, their Google contacts. Okay, and oftentimes this step is done in a using a third-party authorization service. After getting a permission from the user, that is a resource owner, the application makes a request to the authorization server. Okay, authorization server to validate the trade of the authorization code for an access token. Sometimes the authorization server also returns the refresh token so that the app can continue making requests without re-asking the user for the permission during the session, because the access token is temporary and it gets like revoked in a very short period of time. So refresh token works in this case. By including the access token in request header, the application can access protected resources like Google contacts from the resource server. So let's speak a little let's have a discussion upon the grant types. So what are grant types? OAuth 2.0 always begins by getting authorization from the user. There are few different ways that this authorization is granted. These different methods of granting authorization are called grant types. Let's discuss the grant types one by one. First is the authorization code. Another one is the auth code with Pixie. Okay, and the common username and password based method. The other one is the client credential, and lastly the implicit. So how does Postman simplifies this process? Basically, the OAuth dance is performed by Postman itself, and it makes our work very significantly simplified. This process by providing the user interface, a proper well organized user interface, and the system that does a dance for you. Just you need to do 2 steps: enter the grant type and credentials and get the access token. We'll check out this in the hands-on session. So what does this have to do with the workflows? So think of any real-world API. Almost every API you come in contact will have some sort of authentication and authorization. We have already discussed why is it required to avoid the overflow of the flooding of requests and eventually bringing down the API server. This information is imperative to creating today's workflow and any other workflows or application you create. Now we come to the practical hands-on session, building our workflow, the Spotify recommendation flow. Just let's reiterate our business case that we have been hired by a professional music blogger to create a workflow that helps them discover new music. That is to actually, if the music blogger search based upon his interest, we recommend him the tracks or the music tracks that is aligned with his interest. So in this case, the best suit is the Spotify Web API, isn't it? And which lets a blogger search for songs and they like and find similar music of his interest. In this exercise, we'll be using 3 things: the Spotify Web API, OAuth 2, and no doubt Postman. The work or the diagrammatic representation of the workflow can be very well analyzed using this. What we have to do is that we have to get the access token using OAuth. Then we'll get the track ID. Using the track ID, we'll get the track recommendations. So let's switch to the hands-on session. And that's just sharing my browser screen so that you can access it. I will be moving a bit slow to actually get you all follow up. So try following up, and if you have any doubts, feel free to add it into the chat section. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible to you. For this practical session, we'll be using the Postman web client. Basically, Postman has two offerings of has its offering in two versions. That is in web client and the mobile desktop application. Okay, so for this, we'll be using the Postman the web client. So just you can type into your browser and Postman web client. I will just sharing you the link in the chat as well. Can use this link to open into the, hop into the web client. For this session, just let me sign out first. Yeah. So first and foremost, you need to sign up for the web client in order to access, create your own workspace and collections and workflows or Postman. So if you don't have an account, you can just click on here on the top right, sign up for free, and you can sign up. For my case, I have already created an account, so I will sign in instead. So just let me sign in. In case you have any doubt, feel free to just ask it in the chat section, and I will just stop and just help you out in that case. Okay, so basically, you need to go to the workspace, and for this, let's create a new workspace. Okay, create a workspace. Let it be API 102 building workflows. Okay. So make sure that you make it public so that it's accessible even when you share with us. Okay, I have a work. Uh, first- you can add a short summary over here as well. Okay, so my workspace is created. Now, as we have already discussed in the workspace is basically the directory or the area in which you work. Okay, as the name suggests. So basically, we'll create a collection now. You must be knowing what is a collection. A collection is basically a collection of a grouping of resources as resources to a similar kind of resources, or maybe resources of request of different types. Okay, collection of requests of different types, or maybe a collection of requests of similar types to achieve a particular task. So we'll just create a collection over here. New collection. Just rename it to API 102. I hope everything is going well in the chat. Yeah, well, pretty good. So 102 building workflows. You can just name it anything. Doesn't matter much. Sorry. Okay. So as we have discussed earlier, like we will be using the Spotify Web API, isn't it? For this case, like since we need to recommend songs or tracks, music tracks to the end client, that is a music blogger, based upon his interest. So the Spotify API comes into the picture in this case, and it's the best option as well, since every developers have a dream to work with Spotify API. So let's just explore it. The best way to explore any API is to go through its official documentation, right? So just we'll type in Spotify Web API, and we have here the first search. I'm just sharing this as well in the chat so that you can get it if you are facing an issue. Yeah. So this is the Spotify Web API. Let's explore a bit and get our hand dirty. So, okay, this is a regular. This is the common Web API flow. It's showing. Okay. So basically, you can see over here there are different sections: discover, docs, console, and guides. We can just check out guides as of now. Okay. It has authorization guide, working with playlists, rate limits, app modes, using Spotify Connect Web API. Okay, so we'll just move with docs, and we since we need to work with the Web API, so we will go with the quick start guides library. Oh, we have a reference. Just check out the reference section, isn't it? It will be quite faster to actually parse the documentation. So we have since Spotify Web API is a complete a huge base of API. Okay, so there are a lot of small APIs or APIs endpoints built into it. So they have already categorized it into the documentation well. So we have albums, artists, shows, episode, tracks, a search, user, playlist, categories, genres, players, markets. Okay, so as of now, just we'll discuss for a while what we have to actually do. So for now, we need to actually get the first the user. The end user will actually search for a song of his interest, or maybe like a track for his of his interest, and then based upon his interest, we'll get the recommendations. Okay, so we'll search for APIs for which will just actually solve our mission. So here you can see the search. Let's check search for an item, and it's a get call. Yeah, this works in this case because we need the user or the end client needs to search for the item. So we'll be using this, as well as we'll be let's check upon this a bit. We have these are the request parameters. You can check out the request parameters. Like there is a query which is abbreviated as Q, and this is a required request parameter. We need to use it. Here type is a required parameter, and the rest, I guess, are optional parameters we can use to refine our filter, or maybe we can just skip it out. So and this is the response example. We can check it out as well, which is in the form of a JSON body. So okay, so now we'll you can just check it out. See, the request URL is this. You can just check out. They have given an example over here. And for the recommendations, we'll go into tracks, and what we have over here: get track, get several tracks, get user save tracks, and remove. Okay, check users. Yeah, we have the get recommendations. Let's check it out if it fits into our mission. So the recommendations are generated based on the available information for a given seed entity and matched against similar artists and tracks. So we have the get. This is also a type of get request. And what are the parameters over here? Query, seed artist, seed genres, or seed tracks. In this case, we need either of them, either like any of one of them, because it's mentioned a comma separated list of Spotify APIs for seed artists. Up to 5 seed values may be provided in any combination of seed artist, comma seed tracks, and seed genres. Okay, so we have it, and you can just check out the URL for the the base URL and the endpoints over here as well. Guys, just check out if we can just copy it over here for now into our we'll just create a new request. Since we need it, we have a get request, so we'll make it a get request and we'll just name it. So it will be search songs. It can be anything. Okay, so you can just name it and we'll add another request for the get recommendations. So it's get recommendations. Okay, so we have two requests over here, right? And we need to just check out to the documentation what parameters we require. So in this case, like we have the request URL given over here, and we just guys just check it out. Like we have the base URL same in this case, like the for get recommendation as well as for the search item, search for item. Here you can check. This remains the same. So the base, what is happening is that like they have a common base URL, and upon that they have an endpoint. Okay, so we'll just copy the base URL. Where is the search? Yeah, this one. We'll copy the search over here, and okay, it works, and we'll just have the search. So okay, we are having it in the get recommendation. You can add it on the search songs. Okay, because we are actually searching for songs, and we'll just put a request and let's check out what is the response. So oops, it comes out as an error, no token provided. The Postman banks actually provide us a very detailed information if we get into some sort of blockers. So let's check out 401 unauthorized. Okay, pretty common, yeah. So basically it's telling that the request is unauthorized, since we have already talked that any request is authenticated and authorized as well. So for now we need to create an authentication token, so that or access token, so that we can access these APIs, where we can make a request to the APIs, right? So just a minute. Yeah, just I will copy the both the URLs, get recommendation, yeah, and we have this copied as well. Yeah, so we have both of them, and let's check it out as well. I guess the same, pretty much the same, unauthorized. Okay, so first we need to authorize it. So I think do we need to authorize the search song request as well as get recommendation request like individually? No, we have a common access token for both of the calls, since it's from Spotify web API. Okay, so what we'll do is that we'll create a common access token over here, and we'll go to the authorization tab, and here we have for the type of authentication auth, we have no auth API key, bearer token, basic auth, digest auth, auth 1.0 or 2.0, and okay, pretty much. Okay, so we'll have auth 2.0 over here. So we have a pretty much fields over here. So for the token name, we can just mention it as Spotify. Okay. And for the grant type, so I'll just go through the guides if we are missing out something. Just a minute. If you can find the, if you are unable to find the guides, you can just follow up this resource. Okay, so we need first we need to get the authorizations. So we'll move to the authorization guides. Over here we have authorization. It's a basic flow. Which OAuth flow should I use? Okay, okay, okay. So see, as we've already discussed, there are 4 different kinds of grant types over here. Okay, so these are basically authorization code, authorization code with Pixie, client credentials, and implicit grant. So for this hands-on session, we'll be using the authorization code, which according to me is the hardest of all, and it's difficult to actually get the access token from here. So if I guess if we are able to just get the access token from here, the others will be pretty much easy for us. So let's move to the authorization code flow, and we'll get the details of there. So this is the basic diagram, okay, of how the authorization is taking place. So you can see very well that the request authorization to access data, the application is making the request to access the APIs. Okay, the Spotify will display scopes and prompts user to log in. Okay, the user logins, and then request access and access and refresh tokens are provided. Okay, then return access and refresh tokens, then use access token in request to web APIs and return the requested data, user access token in request to web API, and then finally return the new access token. Okay, so basically access token, as I told, is a temporary thing which gets revoked on a short term basis, and we have a refresh token which is used to which is used on a long term basis. Okay, so we'll check out what things we require over here. So these are basically callback URL, auth URL, access token URL, client ID, client secret, scope, state, and client authentication. Okay. So we'll just need to first create an account in Spotify developers account. Okay. So just give me a minute. We have the reference over here. Uh, let's move to the quick start. Okay. In the authorization code flow, okay, we have set up your account. We'll move to the spotify.com to setting up our account and for accessing the tokens. Sorry for this. Yeah, so we'll just sign up in case we don't have an account, and it asks for a lot of things. So we'll just use the OAuth access available here, and we'll choose an account. Let's set the birth as this, pretty much some details, then accept the uh, terms and condition blindly, and yeah, we are done. Achal, can you just send me the link for the login one? I'm not getting it. Just a minute. Achal, can you just put the login website, the Spotify login website over here?
Sure, let me do that.
Yeah, so just let me share my screen again and we'll be back. Window, this one, yeah. I hope my screen is visible. You can just go to this, create an account, okay, and check out. So you can go to the apps section, okay, and it shows here apps with access to your Spotify information. We need to create an application over here. You haven't approved any applications, okay. So Marshall, can you tell me once, like the ad application is not there over here? Create an account, and we are here. We need to just we have signed in up already, and then we need to create an account or play.spotify.app.com. Yeah, got it. Head over to this URL, and you need to create an application over here to just enlist your application you are building, or the workflow you are building, so that you get the access tokens. So you can just log in or sign up here. So what your developer terms, and I accept, blindly accept it. No issues. Yeah, so we are here, and we need to create an application. Okay, so we can name our application as API 1 or 2, building workflows. Okay, uh, or maybe like simply song recommender, and you can just add a description for blogger. Okay, and accept the terms and condition and create your blog the application. So here you can check the app status is development mode. Okay, no issue. You have a client ID. Okay, remember that you need a client ID over here, which is this one. Okay, and you also have an access to the, just a minute. Yeah, you also have a show client secret, which is not to be revealed as in case, but like for this case I'm showing you, but don't worry, I will just revoke it as well. So you need to copy this both client ID and client secret over here, and paste it on this the authorization. Okay, and for the scope we can just leave it as of now. We need these things: callback URL, auth URL, and access token URL. Okay, so for callback URL, you can they have already created an callback URL. Just you can copy it, move to your dashboard, and click on edit settings. Here on the redirect URL, which is the callback URL, you can just paste it and click on add. Was it added? Yeah, save, and click on save. So see, the data for your app song recommender has been saved. Okay, now we need these two things, the auth URL and the access token URL. Let's move on to the guide for the same. Yeah, we can move to the guides over here on the authorization guide tab. You can just check out. We have authorization code which we are using for the grant type, and you can check the we have request user authorization, response type, example for the callback. We have already completed the callback stage. We need the response request access token. Okay, so API token URL encoded, and this. Okay, so they are asking that we need to use this API, the endpoint along with the base URL. Okay, so we have the base URL. Just a minute. You can just copy it. I'm just sharing it on the. Give a minute. The callback URL. Yeah. And for the access token URL, you can just use the same base URL and the endpoints API token, API slash token, right? This one. Control C and paste. Yeah. So there are two slashes over here. Sorry for that. You can use this to add it to your. Sorry. Authorization URL and the access token URL. What should be in the authorization type? Basically, as I've already told you, that the authorization type. What is happening? Sorry. So for the authorization type, you have already mentioned as the authorization code. Okay, and yeah, so you have already mentioned it as authorization code. Okay, the grant type, and for authorization type, you have to use OAuth 2.0. I'm just mentioning in the chat. Yeah, Kamala, you can use this. And you can just click on get new access token. It will ask for the OAuth service. You need to agree and make sure that you are logged in. Okay, and it will create a new access token for you. See, authentication complete, proceed. And see, over here we have the access token. We have also the refresh token. Okay, use token, and it has saved it for me. Bearer, header prefix is bearer, and access token available tokens. So okay, now we have already completed with a whole lot part of the authorization, which was the hardest step, and now we can just focus on calling the APIs. Okay, and get our recommendations based on the users or the end clients interest or the search. Okay, based on his search, we will get the recommendations. So let's again head over to the documentations. So here we have search. We'll first work with the search one, search for items. What we have, as we already discussed, that we have two required headers. That is the query parameter and the type. Okay, so we'll try adding it to the query parameters. We have the base URL over here along with the endpoint search. As you can see, since we're using the base URL quite of times, so we can just make it a variable, collection variable, so that we don't need to call it multiple times. Okay, so you can just add it to your cursor and click on set as variables, set as new variables, and you can call give a name, base URL, okay, which is apt to it. And you can select a scope. We need to make this base URL common for all the requests within the collection. So we'll set the scope as collection. Okay, set variable. See, it is replaced. Okay, now think like we have to call the query parameters. There are two query parameters which are required in this case. One is the Q, which is the query, and the other is the type. Okay, let's go again into the documentation. What is a query? Query can be either album, artist, track, any of the values. Okay, album, artist, track, year, UPC, tab higher, and so on. Okay, and type can be anything. Allowed values: album, artist, playlist, track, show, episode. For this session, we'll use track as the type. Okay, so we are just setting the type as track. And for the query parameter, we'll have, let's again go through it. We can just reference the entire documentation for you while we are using or accessing any API. Okay, so we have album, artist, track. So we'll use artist and track for this. Okay, and let's again check how to use uh, like if we need to call multiple values at a time. So what can we use? This is percentile 20. Okay, so we need to use some operators over here. Okay, so a percentile 20 is basically used for space. Okay, it's an abbreviation for space. So even if we use in even if we use space in a Postman, so it will automatically convert it into percentile 20, no issue. So we'll just mention it over here in the query parameter artist colon. We'll need some value like I do not remember, but we can keep something like we can have um, let's check track. We can keep as toxic. I love it. And for artists, we can have. Let me search on Google something if I get. Would Britney Spears work? Yeah. So you can add anything of your choice here. You are not restricted, and feel free to add spaces. Postman will already will add add required parameters over here. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. And see, automatically the query parameters and the type is added into the Postman call. Okay, now we'll just check whether we can send a request. See, 401 token not provide unauthorized again. It is 401 403 forbidden, but specifically for use we when authentication is possible but has failed, not yet. The response must include okay, okay, sure. For authorization inherit from auth parent or 2.0, we'll just need access token. We have available token Spotify. We'll choose the access token as Spotify, which we have already created over here in the for the collection. Okay, and we'll just inherit over here. And let's again send a request. Check. Now we are done. The status is 200. Okay, and we have a lot of things coming up in the JSON body as our search to the API. Okay, so it's working pretty well fine over here. But think based upon the request of the user, like if a user searches for for the track as toxic and artist as Britney Spears. So do we get like do we need everything over here which is coming as a request? No, we just need the track ID because in the as per the documentation again in the get recommendation we need either of the seed tracks, the seed genres, or seed artists. Okay, so in this case we can use any of them. Okay, seed artists, seed genres, or seed tracks, which are the required parameters. So we'll just post the request is called, we'll just add a test so that we can store the track ID. Okay, so just a minute. So I'm just adding this code over here. You can just paste it and I will explain it pretty well. Yeah. So what it's doing, the test is doing, we actually get the response, the pm.response.json, okay, which converts it into a JSON body, and it's stored. It is stored in a variable const. So it's stored in a variable body. Okay. Now we need the track, okay, track ID. So what we'll do is that we'll check out the first item. In computer science, like every call, the it starts from 0, not 1. Okay, so we'll call the first item 0, and we'll store it in the first track. Okay, now we'll check for the first item. We'll get the track ID of the first item. So here you can check the track ID is there. See, ID over here is there. We need to store this part only this much into a variable, right? So that we can use it for the get recommendation. So what we are doing is that we are calling first track dot id is stored into the variable track id. Okay, and then we are setting we are actually calling pm dot collection variables dot set track id as track id. Okay, so what it's doing is that it is creating a collection variable and setting the value, the key of track ID to the value of track ID, the track ID over here, this one. Okay, so let's try it out. Just I'm sending a request, and let's check into my the collection variables. You can go to the collection tab and then click on variables. See, the track ID is stored. Pretty much awesome. So now we'll move to the get recommendations. Do you have any? What is a collection? Okay, so somehow basically a collection is a grouping of requests, maybe of similar type or for different types as per the requirement to achieve a particular task. Okay, so give me. I'm giving you an example. Like a class, what is a class? A class is a collection of students. Okay, so a similar request is a class is collection of students of a particular level of studies. Okay, so similarly request can be collection stored into a common grouping, okay, which is called collections. And when we call these requests into multiple times, like when we call all the requests simultaneously, this is done through the workflows. Okay, then we define the workflow. So Postman does a lot of work for us over here. So now we'll just move to the get recommendations. So in the get recommendation, we'll again move to the documentation and check what parameters do we need to pass. As we have already discussed, that seed artists or seed genres and seed tracks are the required parameters. So we'll use seed tracks over here for since we are storing the track ID. Okay, and what it says is that a comma separated list of Spotify IDs for seed track up to 5 seed values may be provided in any combination. So in this case, what we'll be doing is that we'll just store this track ID over here. We'll just use a single track ID. Maybe we can store all the track IDs, the 5 track IDs, and we can send all the 5 track IDs to this request. Okay, but for this case, we are for simplicity we just use a single track ID. Okay, so just let me copy the parameter seed tracks. Okay, and just paste it into the query parameter section. And for the value, how can we access this variable? We can access this variable since it's a global to the collection. Okay, we can just call the track ID and it will pass on the value. So we'll use like this track ID, or you can simply write track ID, it will come. Okay, and you can just click on it and it will get the track ID installed. So again, we need to set up the authorization. We can inherit from the parent, which is auth 2.0, and from the available tokens you need to select Spotify. Okay, let's check whether it works or not. Yeah, it works. status is 200, and we get the recommendations. So let's check the body once. We get tracks. Under the tracks we have albums, artists, let's just available markets, and so on. This market, this number, duration, ms, okay, href, popularity, preview url, albums, again an album. Okay, so it's basically calling a list of albums, that is the tracks which we need, which we actually recommend to the user based upon his interest or the search he has already performed. Okay, so yeah, it's working. Okay, so now what we can do is that we need to again set up a test script over here, just sending it in the chat so that you can just copy paste. Since user cannot get the cannot go through this JSON, since it's a long kind of JSON code. Okay, so what we'll do in this case is that we'll just show a part of the response to the user. So for this we need to write a post request test, which will just show the user a part of the JSON response. Okay, I'm just adding it to the chat section as so that you can copy add it to your test script. Cool. So now let's check if we can show the proper response to the users. Let's check the settings section as well. On the settings section, everything looks fine. Okay, so we'll just send the request once and let's check. Yeah, so it all looks fine over here. So we have the workflows, get recommendations. Yeah, so let's discuss in brief what it's doing. So it takes the body response body as JSON. Okay, then it slices the entire since it's a list of albums. Okay, it slices the list of albums into a total of 3 elements. Okay, that is from 0 to 3. Okay, and it does not take the last element, that is 0 1 2. Okay, and then it calls it that then it sets the collection variables, that is pm.collection variables dot get track. Like it calls the track which is the collection variable, and so it's in a variable track. Okay, now what we'll do is that we'll set the template to preview to the user. Okay, this is the template, discover new tunes, and we'll just list down all the albums over here, and then we'll just visualize it. Okay, so just let's check it again. Yeah, so we have come to the end of the hands-on session. We are already ready with the recommendation system. And just last thing, since the user cannot add search values over here, it will be very difficult for the user. So what we can do is that we can just set these values as global variables. Okay, to the collection, and so that the user can just click on it and set over here. Okay, this is the last thing we can do. So we'll just set the track, and which is toxic. User can change it as per the requirement, and we have the artist. We can set the artist as well as Britney Spears. Okay, cool. So we can just replace the values we have hard coded to the global variables track. It's saying that it's not added. Yeah, we have it. Just a minute. We can just add a track to over here, and we can just set a value toxic, set the scope, and set variables. Yes, it has added, and it is turned to orange. For this, we can just click on this toxic and replace with it with track. And for the Britney Spears, what we can do is that we can call the artist variable, and it comes red. We'll just click and add a new variable, which is add the value to it. Key Spears. Yeah, and set the scope to the collection. Okay, now you can check. Once we have already see we have already set the variables over here, and then user can easily make his change his search options by changing the values over here, and then it calls the something went wrong while running a script. Check Postman console for information. Bad search for field type toxic. We have some issues, I guess. Okay, I got it. So just you can replace as of now, like with toxic. Okay, so it will work. At the variable track, and you can replace with the variables over here and call the APIs. It will work fine. Okay, so we'll now just move on to back to the slides. Stop sharing.
Hello, Sourav. You are actually mute.
Yeah, so basically what I was saying is that we have already covered this workflow, right? Since we are getting the access token, we are authorizing it, the APIs, then we are calling the search API the get track ID. Okay, and we are getting the track ID, and then we are using that track ID, we are calling the get recommendation function API, and then we are getting the recommendation to the end user. Okay, so now it's your turn to actually create a recommendation, again a system, again a workflow with 5 song recommendations, and you can use it, easily create it using by forking this collection. Okay, Swastik, you can provide the link to the collection in the chat, and follow the instructions in your in the collection, and you will get it. Going further, we'll what workflows could you make? Create a You can make a whole lot of workflows. You can automate anything and everything by using workflows, right? So from creating a playlist, from by recommending songs, by like making a script as testing workflow, you can do anything. Okay, so now we move to the major swag section. So are you people not interested for the swags? So swags aren't cool enough. So yeah, so we have these swags for you, for those attendees who have been like attending since an hour in the session. So in order to get some cool swags from Postman, you need to create a workflow. In this workflow, what you are required is that in a public workspace, you need to create a collection and create a workflow using any public API. of any choice of any domain or any field, and you need to create this workflow. Okay, and this should solve a problem. Okay, like since we have developed a system which recommends songs. Okay, you can use any kind of APIs, any public APIs to create a workflow of this kind. Again, we have another challenge for you. This was the challenge one, create a workflow. Other challenge can be the blog writing competition. You can pretty well share what you have learned from this session overall, and how was your experience throughout the session. What were the major key takeaways from this session. You can just add it on in a blog and just share it, and you can use the hashtags Postman student and Postman API, and just share us using the Google form we'll be rolling out just after this session, so that and it will be open for 2 days, so you can just take your time and make the blog. So now, share your learnings over LinkedIn and Twitter with hashtag Postman Student. The Postman has also like other kind of giveaways. Like they have the Postman Student Expert Program that is to actually educate people over API literacy, and so you can try this out as well. And we also have sessions to train you over Postman Student Expert, so how you can get into how you can become a Postman Student Expert, and we'll definitely train you. You can also join the Postman Discord server. Okay, just firstly, you can just share the link, Discord server link over the chat, and where you also get an opportunity to interact with awesome people like Ali Mustafa and Chel, and many other Postmanauts and Postman student community people. Okay, including the leaders and expert. You also get to learn a lot of things there, so you can join the Discord. Now we are open to the question and answer sessions. Do you have any questions? You can just unmute yourself.